need to develop a mindset that is solution oriented. Though the circumstances may seem like nothing can become of your life or that thing that you really wanted to do is impossible, if you were telling yourself that, then it's going to be true. Those that say they can't and those that say they can are both usually right. If you continue to tell yourself that it is impossible, it will be impossible. Who would have thought this kid from the projects would being called to go around the country and speak, right? And people will be willing to pay for me to spend 30 minutes talking or 10 minutes talking.
Hey, this is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 121 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And today our guest is Gemar Mills. Thank you to everyone who tuned in last week for our amazing 2 episodes. In episode 119, you heard from Melissa Butler all about how she was able to go from stockbroker to beauty entrepreneur. And then in episode 120, you heard from me where I gave some tips on how we all can get more focused on our goals. Today's episode, though, it's all about how to create a winning mindset that will help you turn around your life. We talk about how you can achieve, how you can create possibility despite the odds, despite the obstacles against you. And Gemar's story is one that I think that you guys will really, really enjoy. He talks about how he went from growing up in the inner city, involved in a lot of things that weren't so good for him, and how he turned his life around through education. In 2005, he started his career teaching math at Eastside High School in Newark, New Jersey. And by 2009, at the age of 28, he became the principal of Malcom X Shabazz High School in Newark, New Jersey, which is one of the most troubled schools in the state. It was suffering from low test scores, was threatened with the possibility of closure, and he took on this challenge of helping students learn to love education again, and also just turning around an environment not only for students but for parents, for staff, for teachers, all those involved. And I think the biggest thing that I got out of this episode was, no matter what, there always is a way if you want to create a way. And on this episode, we discuss how Gemar ended up getting 400 stitches as a young teenager and how that changed his life, how he knew he had a gift for motivating students when he became a teacher, the best accident of his career, the 2 keys to making change, how he was able to gain respect as a young leader. Then we talk about building the Gemar Mills brand, because he became really known throughout the state and the nation as this turnaround principal and this leader, especially in education. So we talk about when he realized he had to start really crafting a purposeful brand. So you guys are in for a treat in today's episode. Now, I've been doing these giveaways of the week every week. So today's giveaway is going to be the book Brand You Like a Boss by one of our dream drivers and personal branding strategist, Natasha Weston. And I think a lot of us who are listening to this episode, we also want to build our mindsets, but we also want to build our brands. And in Brand You Like a Boss, Natasha gives us a no-fluff guide to helping you tap into, understand, and cultivate your personal brand. You'll learn how to monetize it, how to build your platforms, and how to give your personal brand a makeover, and much, much more. So if you want to enter to win that book, Brand You Like a Boss, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/win. That's dreamsanddrive.com/win. Make sure you're following us on social. We're Dreams and Drive across the board, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And keep on sharing when you guys are listening, especially to Instagram stories. I love going on Instagram every day and just getting new DMs, new mentions where you guys are talking about the show, talking about how it impacts you. It's a great way for other people to hear about it, and I truly do appreciate it. Remember that you also should subscribe wherever you're listening to this episode right now, and show notes are available at dreamsanddrive.com. All you have to do is click on episode 121, and there are a lot of tweetables in this episode, so you definitely want to go onto the website and share those and look at those, copy them to your own desktop wherever you're listening, screenshot them, because Gemar was dropping gems. Hi, Gemar. Welcome to this episode of Dreams and Drive. I am so excited to have you on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been really an exciting day, and I've been looking forward to this interview.
I have been looking forward to it as well. As I was telling you before we started the call, I've been a fan of your work and just all your accomplishments and things that you have been able to do in my local New Jersey. As our listeners know, I am a proud New Jerseyan. So anytime I can have somebody on the show talking about what they're doing in Jersey, I always have to do that. Gemar, I like to start our interviews going back in time, right? If I had to say, young Gemar, the 8-year-old, 9-year-old Gemar, what was inspiring you back then?
8 and 9 years old, I think I was inspired by the traditional things that most people or younger generation get inspired by, is like sports, entertainment. Those were the things that I was really, really gravitating to. Working out. I would say that one of the things that was unique back then was my stepfather. He actually had got a job doing computer programming. And so he brought a lot of that stuff into the home, and we knew nothing about computers. So at that age, at age 9, I've actually had access to the internet. And I was learning a lot of that. So that was intriguing, taking your television and converting it to an actual monitor was foreign. But he was showing me some of those things. So those were things that inspired me to say, there's other things out there than what my current circumstance is. And I want to explore it.
So set the scene for us. Where were you growing up? Where in New Jersey did you grow up?
So I grew up in Paterson, New Jersey. I grew up in the Christopher Columbus projects. For any of the listeners that are from Paterson, they're very familiar with the projects. It was filled with drugs, violence, prostitution. I've witnessed people get murdered right in front of me. I've come from the store to find a dead body. I've actually been shot at. I was actually shot at the age of 10. I was mistaken for a local teenager who was, into the wrong lifestyle. And as I walked from the store, we had the same coat. And so they thought that I was him. So it was a rough upbringing for sure. Didn't have everything I would have wanted. And just kind of navigated through it all without actually tarnishing my record, which gave me the opportunities that I have today. I like to say that, ultimately God was watching, because I definitely was making some bad decisions. And at some points, it was just like those people or those decisions that I was making them with were being taken out of my life. So I can have no choice but to make the opposite decision.
What do you think was a turning point for you as an adolescent?
Oh, yeah, it's extremely vivid. So if you've ever gotten close enough to see my face on my right side, right above my right eye, I have a very long scar that goes down to my cheek. I had 400 stitches in my face when I was about 15 years old.
400?
400, yeah.
What?
My face was wide open. Yeah.
Wow.
It's the doctor actually did it in layers. They were stitching my face so long that the numbness that they put into it, the anesthesia, I guess it would be called, it went away. And I began to feel the pain, and they had to renumb the wound. But yeah, I mean, I was a kid. I was participating in a lot of stuff I shouldn't have been. A week earlier, I actually had went to an adult party with some of the older gentlemen in the projects. So, they were anywhere from 20 to 30, but they had taken me with them as just like a form of fun. They thought it would be cool to do. I, of course, went, and they assaulted a guy really, really bad. I actually thought they killed the guy. So that following, about 2 weeks later, my friends in our age group left our side of town and headed to what we would call up the hill from down the hill. And some of those older gentlemen recognized me. And as we walked past their neighborhood, they attacked some of my friends. We ran. I stopped, thinking that I was being smart. So I'll go into the White Castle, which had an officer in it. But I didn't make it that far. And so they hit me with what was we had these very large metal window frames in the neighborhood. And somehow they had one, like a piece of it. And they struck me with that. It bust my face open. I fought back for as long as I could. A bunch of people jumped on me before the cop actually came out of the White Castle and ran them off.
So what happened next? Like, how did you go to the, well, I'm sure you went to the hospital, but
Yeah, no.
Like, what was that? What did that teach you then? Like, what was the thing you were telling yourself at this moment?
The turning point was, I can continue on in this lifestyle and I can retaliate, or I can embrace some of the things that are happening that other people are excited about. Because sometimes as a youth, you get peer pressure and you get excited about the wrong attention, right? Sometimes it's cool to be with the kids who are not necessarily doing what they're supposed to do because there may be, women attached to that. There may be fast money attached to that. There may be an opportunity, to have your own at a very young age. But at the same time, I was experiencing some success in sports. And, my teachers, my educators, my mom was really telling me like my potential and how bright I was. And so I knew that there was a decision to be made. And when I talk about, God kind of intervening, literally some of my friends that were with me on those nights, I came home from school and they were no longer outside because they had been arrested. And so I continued to go to school and I got really, really serious with football. And some of my coaches, one of them actually gave me a job to keep me away from the streets in the summer. And it was enough money for me to kind of buy the things that I wanted to keep up with some of my friends who were doing the wrong things. And before you know it, by the end of my junior year, I began receiving college letters to go to college to play sports.
Was college on your mind before that?
No, I would say it really struck when a teacher that I was working with was tutoring me on the SAT. And she was talking to me about my potential. And I actually scored, it's like an 840 my first time out with the SAT. And she told me that I could do better and like I need to try. And so I began applying myself and I made the honor roll. And she was like, you finally woke up, and she agreed to dedicate more time to me in tutoring. And I ended up getting over 1,100 on the SAT in 2 parts. And once the letter came, it just became like a real thing for me. Like, this is possible because no one else in my family had done it, not even graduated high school. So I could be that person.
So you went on to Montclair State University and you got a Bachelors of Science in mathematics. What was your college experience like? Did you have this dream for what life would look like post-college?
I did, and it was superficial. It was like I'm gonna get a degree. And I recall like going through the process of earning my degree and getting to the practicum stage where I was actually in and out of schools. And I was very interested in how does a teacher become an administrator for one simple reason. I knew that administrators made more money than teachers. Oh,
so you were in school, you got a mathematics degree, so you were actually in a teaching program as well? I just want to make sure we get that clear.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So in my junior year, again, what I realized while in school, I just wanted to make the road as easy as possible. And so I didn't want to take out school loans. So I inquired within about ways in which that I can do that. And so with the scholarship money that I was receiving from the college for playing sports, and then by actually joining the teacher program, I received what was called the Science and Mathematics Scholarship, where they paid for all of my teaching courses and they gave me a stipend.
Mm.
And so with that, my refund check was pretty good and I was able to buy a car and I didn't have any loans. So these are all things that I was figuring out as I was going through the process, because no one else had ever done it in my family. So I was filling out the FAFSA application myself. There was no guidance counselor. There was no one to call at home. This was all me. And I was just saying, Mom, give me your tax returns and I'll finish the rest.
So you graduated and you were studying to be a teacher. What was the next move? What was that move for you?
Sometimes you just talk, and that's definitely, I would encourage millennials or anybody, like, speak it into existence. Even as an undergrad, I always said to myself, I will be a principal. And in the same voice, I would say, but I'm never going back to school. So I wasn't being realistic, but when I began teaching, I really had a good rapport with the students. And it was what I would always say was math was what I was good at.
Where were you at this point?
I was at Eastside High School in Newark, New Jersey.
Okay.
I'm at Eastside. I'm 22. I have a great rapport with the students, and I just got a dental plan. So I still had a chipped tooth. I literally still had a chipped tooth walking into the school as a certified math teacher. And, so people like chipped tooth, scar on his face, like, where did y'all find this guy? I was far from polished. But yeah, so my experience with those young people was really good. My supervisor at the time thought that I could take on more and allowed me to work with the algebra repeaters. So these were the students who struggled the most and needed the most help. And when they took the assessment, which at the time was the high school proficiency assessment, 80% of them actually passed the assessment. And that's when I knew, like, I may be something to this, that I'm not just teaching students, but I'm taking some of the worst students and getting them to believe in themselves. And when they apply themselves, they're actually succeeding. And at that point, I decided to pursue my master's.
So when you were working with those students, what do you think were some of the biggest challenges they were facing?
I think some of their biggest challenges was just people didn't understand.
Them?
And it was people weren't, they didn't understand them. People wanted to understand them. They wanted to listen. And what I find is that young people who go through a lot have a hard time sharing their truths because everyone thinks that they can do something different, and it isn't that easy. And coming from the same environment, I didn't grow up in the middle class situation. So I was able to truly understand and apply what it was that they were saying to experiences that I had to help them navigate it and then have a breakthrough. And it was simple stuff like that. Like my relatability was something that made them show up every day for those that had poor attendance. I motivated them by being like a beacon of hope. Like, here's a guy that came through the same situations and he has some of the things I want. And so again, when I talk about being superficial, I probably shouldn't have had this car, but
what kind of car? You got to tell us what kind of car it was.
When I was 22, at that time, I had a XKR. That was my first car. It was if you ever saw James Bond, he had a two-door Jag. It was like the souped-up version of it. So I had that one, and then
when Jaguar at 22.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I got rid of that. So I was wasting all of my money. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I got rid of that, I actually got a 745 Li. That was like my next car. After that, it's when BMWs were really. It looked like a sneaker to me. So yeah, wasting my money, but at the same time inspiring the youth because they never thought like a teacher could have those things. Because that's not what they spent their money on. At least the average teacher, will probably invest in a home, and I was wasting a lot of money on cars. And it gets worse as we go through this story, me and my love of cars.
But you know what? We all have our vices, right? We all have those certain things. Like I like ice cream and I'm lactose intolerant. So that's not good, right? So there's just certain things that we all have. But thinking about something that you said, I think is really interesting. And I see this dynamic a lot is, do you think you could have had the same impact on the kids you worked with if your background was different, although your intentions were the same?
Yes, and it would have taken longer, right? I think that, like anything else, when you know something, when you can relate to something, you just understand it easier. Someone who's trained to be a doctor for years on end, and then someone who wants to be a doctor, it's not that person can't do it, is that it's just going to take them a little longer if their training or their background was, let's say, in computer science. Mm-hmm. It's not something that you just know innately. So for me, the student that I was working with, it was an innate thing for me. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't go read about it or study it. I lived it. So it was like, me just pulling up past experiences and being able to connect it. So yeah, I think if my background was different, I would need to have done more digging, more research, and maybe even, figured out ways to spend more time in a community that my students were amongst to even understand, like, what their plight truly was. Sorry, it is doable. I just think that it will take more than a year to get those types of results if you're learning about the person you're working with.
So you said results, and I think that's a good segue to what I wanted to talk to you about. So you started teaching at 22, and by 27, you were a principal, right?
We say 28, but yeah, we can go with 28 because it was actually, so my birthday is June 25th. And so I was wrapping up my year as a vice principal. I turned 28, and then I actually received the principal position on August 30th, a few days before school started.
So my question is how? You don't necessarily think of someone being able to rise the ranks, right, within education in just a 6-year period. What were the things that you were doing or the goals you were setting in order to get to that?
I think so first I always dream big, right? I always believe that, I don't need to follow the traditional route in order to get to the things that I want to get. I can, again, carve out my own way. And once I run into roadblocks, I'll figure it out then. But I'm not going to wait until, someone else's stipulation comes to fruition before I take a chance at it. And so that's just how I saw it. So when they told me I needed to attend the graduate program for 2 years in order to receive my certification, and I said that it has to be a faster way. And so I looked into the programs. I found an online program that was accelerated. And while I was teaching, I actually pursued my master's, and I was able to receive it in 10 months. That program didn't give me all of the coursework that I needed in order to receive a supervisor certification in New Jersey. And so I had to go back to school. I ended up taking courses at St. Peter's. So I finished up my graduate studies there. I got my supervisory cert. And again, I didn't wait. On June 10th, I graduated, and I began applying for jobs. And I began talking to people who I thought believed in me. And those conversations led to interviews. And I remember my first interview. I was extremely young. I think at the time I might have been 25. And the woman is asking me all these questions about how I'm going to supervise people that's twice my age. And I just kept saying, I'm ambitious, I'm hungry, and whatever I don't know, I'm going to learn it.
That's what you told her?
I told her that so much. Like, anytime I answered the question, I was like, but I'm so dedicated that I'm going to learn it. And I was saying this, and I would say this to other people. What it took someone to learn in 24 years, I'm going to work 24 hours a day to mitigate that amount of time, to learn the same things. And I meant that. She believed in me, and she said, you know what? I'm going to give you a shot. And she did. And then my resume went up to the assistant superintendent. And this is probably the best accident of my entire career. He refused to allow me to be the chairperson of mathematics at Arts High School in Newark. He switched my resume and said that you're going to be assigned to Malcom X Shabazz High School as the chairperson of math.
So you had applied for arts, though.
Yep. And was hired by the principal there.
So why do you say it was a mistake or an accident?
Well, again, it wasn't my intent to go to Shabazz.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right, the rumor in the district was like, you go there to bury your career. Like, nothing's happening there. You can't be successful there. So
set the stage for our listeners about the differences between these two high schools and just their positioning within the Newark education system.
And I'm 25. Learning as much as I can about Newark, but Arts High School is a magnet school, meaning children get chose to go to that school. It isn't a place where anyone can just go. Tisha Campbell graduated from Arts High School. Michael B. Jordan graduated from Arts High School. Like they have a very solid reputation for not only educating students to pass standardized tests, but also to have their career flourish after they leave high school. And so in comparison, the narrative that was out there about Shabazz at the time was, it's a very rough neighborhood. It's in one of the toughest sides of Newark. It's in the South Ward. It's a lot of gang violence. Nothing's happening there. The children are performing very low. Teacher attendance is low. If you want to go there and get lost, basically people forget about you because there won't be a lot of success. Shabazz is the place you choose.
Were you scared on your first day?
I wouldn't say scared. I definitely wouldn't say that. And I remember thinking about how I wanted to respond to the assistant superintendent, like saying, I don't want the job because I didn't get arts. And I remember sending that email and say, thank you for the consideration and giving me an opportunity. Wherever you see the place that's best fit, I'll be there. And so I went to Shabazz, and I saw a lot of what I already knew. It wasn't shocking. It was things that was familiar to me that I saw as a student attending a 3,000 student high school. Children wearing hats, children pulling the fire alarm, children smoking in the building. It was just a lot of things that needed to be corrected. And in my mind, I had some of the solutions, things that could be done to begin to just control for the social aspect of why children were actually coming to the school. They wanted to hang out. It wasn't really for educational academic purposes at the time. And this was like 2007, 2008.
You know what I love that you said? And I mean, I wasn't in high school that long ago, but you say children, right? And I think sometimes high schoolers think they're adults, right?
Yep.
And it's just so interesting to hear you talk about them and saying children, because they really are children, but yet they're living these lives where it's like, do you not realize how old you really are, right? And so I love how you put that into perspective.
No, that's so real. And when I got to Shabazz, I was 25, right? So my youngest teacher was 48.
Your youngest? No.
That I was supervising. So it's like,
where do all the young kids, like where do all the young children, young teachers go? Why didn't they want to teach there?
Well, they weren't there. Like even the ones that were coming in the door that they had just hired, they were just older people. I don't know. Maybe it was the what the previous chairperson of math preferred. Maybe she felt like that was a separation that was needed. But that's what I walked into. I walked into 5 vacancies and 7 teachers, and majority of them were tenured teachers who had been in the game for a long time. And you're right about that piece about students, right? It didn't matter if you were 18, 19, and some of them were 21. You were still in high school and you had a lot to learn about life. And I treated you like that. I wasn't afraid of you. And it didn't matter what reputation you had built, because I understood that I'm here to do a job. And those people in the streets who you look up to, if we had a conversation with them, they would say that you should be in school trying to be better than them, because they're not proud of the circumstances that they have to accept. And I always understood that concept, that the people who would say, my big homie, he doesn't really want to be this person. He has no choice. Mm-hmm. Well, let's not say you don't have a choice, but this is what he's accepted based on some decisions that he or she has made. And they want better for you. And kids understood that. And they would look at me and be like, you know what? You right. And now we willing knows how to have those conversations. Like, bring him in. Let's talk to him. Call your mother. Let's do whatever we have to do for you to understand that this is as important as anything that's going on in the streets.
So thinking about your time at Shabazz and all the improvements you were able to make, if you had to say the one key to making a drastic change, what would that be? Structure,
systems. It is extremely important that everyone knows their role and responsibility. This is not just about children. This is about adults. This is about the cafeteria workers. the custodial workers, the groundskeeper, the sports programs. Everyone needed to, the clerk inside of the main office, everyone needed to know what their purpose was within that building and how to magnify it so that it actually comes together and connects with other systems that were in the building. That was so key, just to getting Shabazz in a place where kids could actually feel like they were having school, right? That they can go to class or to the bathroom and feel safe. That if they went to the bathroom, someone wasn't going to be in there waiting for them and trying to rob them. Or if they walked down the wrong hallway, they would be assaulted. And teachers too. Teachers needed to feel like if they actually reported an incident, that there would be no retaliation from a student or some other adult. You know, that was extremely important. If a parent came in irate, they needed to know that it was a way to handle them and that that parent wouldn't do anything to harm them later or do something to their car. You know, a lot of the teaching staff at some point just didn't want to dedicate themselves so much that they would make decisions that may affect their own well-being. And I wanted to ensure them that that wasn't the case. And one way to do it is to be transparent and say, here's how these things are going to work. And then you have my word to support you when you're right. And you have my word to also investigate to make sure you're right. Because it was about being fair and firm, not just siding with an adult or a student. That would be a thing that anybody going into education or in life in general, make sure it's operationally sound. That if you walk away from it, it can still run.
How did you gain the respect as a leader at such a young age, especially when you were working with people who were twice your age?
One would be timely responses, timely, accurate responses. People want to know that when they come to you with a question, that the answer you give is one, correct. And they don't want to wait 12 days to get the answer because it may actually be too late for them to solve the problem that they're trying to get solved. So that was extremely important. And so when I tell you that I was working 24 hours, I was doing that because I needed to catch up on certain things that I just didn't have a know-how for. You know, I had to read.
What?
Like, so for example, a teacher storms into the main office, throws his hands up in the air. I'm sitting at the desk and he says, I'm tired of this SHIT and I'm not going back into class. He's one of my teachers. And so it's like, okay, well, how do you handle something like that? Because I know that he left the class unattended. I know that he shouldn't be cursing in the main office, but he's also the union rep. And so do I really want to get into a back and forth with the person who could essentially, you know, pull together a bunch of people to get rid of me or make it difficult for me to do my job? And you know what? I had to talk to a lot of people really fast. I had to do a bunch of digging and research and asking people for samples of how they would write this thing up if they had to. And by the next day, I had the document written up and I was able to provide it to him. And when it went up to the next level, you know, everyone was singing my praises because it was no way for that person to wiggle out of what they had done and being held accountable for it. So much so that even people on their end were saying, you know, did you do these things? And if you did, you got to move past it because he's right. And these were things that I didn't have to deal with inside of a classroom. Mm-hmm. And it was things that I didn't have to deal with in my everyday life. And I wasn't leading a group of people who had common knowledge about stuff that I needed to know at the time. And then I knew it. People would ask me stuff like curriculum. And then this might be a boring part of our conversation, but, you know, in mathematics, you know, everything isn't black and white. They want to know that if there were a difficult problem on the SAT that students needed to solve and they weren't clear on what the answer was, or there was a debate out there, that I could actually solve the problem. You know, they just wanted to build confidence that this guy is not just a security guard because he's big. He's also an academic and can help us move students' achievement. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So during this time, you were getting a lot of, I guess you could say a lot of press, right? You were helping to turn Shabazz around. You were doing all these great things in the community. When did it become a priority for you to manage or take control of building the Gemar Mills brand? Because I would definitely say it was becoming a brand name, especially locally.
At this point, I became a vice principal, and I did that for a year. And the building was really becoming tough. I mean, we were the third principal in 3 years. Mm-hmm. So after that 1 year, I became the principal. And as the principal, I really wasn't trying to build a brand. I was just, I set we had a mantra, which was no days off. And I really held teachers to that. Like, if you're serious about doing this and you on board with this, I should see you here every day. And I did that for students and adults. And, in month one, we didn't have any fire alarm pulls. So that was huge because the year before we had 119.
In 1 year?
Yeah, it was like every day we were outside. There was a shooting on the campus. The paper had said that Shabazz is comparable to Baghdad. Like, it was just a lot of bad press on the school. And they were actually scheduled to close it the year before I became the principal.
Okay.
So it was a lot of just rough situations going on. And the next year we started doing well. We didn't know what test scores was going to be like, but the hallways were clear. Students were in classrooms. There was no major incidents that we were dealing with. And we hadn't had a toast off, right? And these are small things, small wins, in probably 6 to 8 years, because the last toast off, again, someone had a weapon and someone got assaulted. So it was a big no. But when the test scores came back, we went from 36% proficiency to 63% proficiency in language arts. And that's where it all happened. The camera crews just start showing up. Emails from local newspapers and television companies saying, hey, we want to interview you. We want to talk to you. We want to talk to your team. We want to know everything about how you were able to get children who were deemed failures to actually apply themselves and score higher, have the most growth district-wide, statewide for that matter, in one school year. And it still hadn't hit me that, this is something I need to manage. I need to start doing stuff around it until the following year. And the following year, the NewJersey.com called and said they wanted to do a full documentary. And Sports Illustrated called and said they wanted to do a short documentary. And then Hollywood called and they said they wanted to do a reality show. And so at that point, I was like, whoa, this is serious. People are really serious about the work that I'm doing. And I need to begin to have something to point them to when they have questions, or I need to have a bio to be able to send to someone, or I need to take, some quality pictures if people were interested in posting it somewhere. Because if I don't have these things, I'm not going to feel that I've been, that I'm prepared to even be a part of a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, it became a lifestyle. You need to eat better. You need to get in the gym more how you used to be. You need to take those phone calls, attend those events, because it's not necessarily about you. You get to spread this thing that you were able to work with people to develop and share it with other people who have the same similar challenges.
Personally, how did that affect you? Were you feeling good about it, or was it something that you kind of had to get used to?
You know what you have to get used to? You have to get used to people not liking you the same way that they used to like you.
Wow. Explain. What do you mean?
As you grow and you elevate, sometimes, and I think Jay-Z says this in one of his lyrics, clearly I'm an avid hip hop listener. Drake said it.
What kind of car did you have at this point?
Oh, you don't want to know. I don't even want to tell you because it's not even going to sound believable. So yeah, this is a true story. So my first year as a principal, I was really wasting my money then. I actually purchased a Bentley. I had a two-door.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, kids, if you ever see some of the kids at the school, they'll tell you like, yeah, Mr. Mills had a Bentley.
Okay.
Yeah, I was out of control. And I realized that now. At the time, it was just like, I'm 28. I'm making six figures. I could afford this. Not really thinking like you can, but you probably should be, trying to save your money, make it work for you, or buy a home in a better neighborhood or, whatever it is that was going to be asset building or wealth building, which is things that I focus on now versus like this drain, which is just an expensive car that's going to depreciate and you're going to have to sell it back for less money than you paid for it. So if you're listening, don't make those mistakes. So yeah, Jay-Z, he says like, sometimes you live long enough to become a villain, right? Or you like die and be a hero. And you notice like as you rise and rise and rise, everyone is not going to embrace your story the same way as the other person. So you just have to get used to, attention. And whether it's good or bad, you have to be comfortable with you and be comfortable with, who you are, what you stand for, or what your character is, and not really allow someone else to knock you off your focus and continue to elevate and grow, because oftentimes people need it and you don't always get the roses while you can still smell them. And that's something that I had to grapple with initially, because, you'll hear things like, he's not really about the kids. He just want to be famous, or, he's not trying to do anything great for the children, or those numbers aren't real. Like just a lot of stuff. And I'm, sometimes you're reading this stuff and you're like, man, I'm in this school from 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning, 7 days a week to get these things to happen. And so when you read stuff like that, it's like, it make you feel unappreciated. But I would say I dealt with that for at least 6 months to a year before I just realized where my power was, what I have to accept if this is the role I'm going to take. And I found that there was more people that supported it than those that wanted to question it. And it's because of that that I was able to deal with it. And students, I never met a student that told me that, I wasn't in it for the right reasons. And that's the most important thing.
I was about to say that, but those are the people who truly matter, right? Who you're really doing it for. So why the decision to go back to Paterson?
One Paterson is where I'm from. And so I got out of Paterson when I went to college, and I did all my practicum work in Newark. And I also always understood that Newark was the biggest stage. Like if you ever were going to make change, Newark is the place to make change, because most people would look at it in New Jersey as the most complex system that one would need to navigate and solve problems. But what I learned in the principalship is, as well as this process of kind of getting notoriety for my work in the principalship, is that there's power within me, and that I can begin to build something that can be as successful as any other school district in the country. And potentially, if I do this right, I can grow it to be the most successful school district in the country. And being at Shabazz, that I built that confidence. I begin to believe in me and not trying to outsource things that I needed done. And so when I look at it, or I looked at the bigger thing, my vision, and said to myself, where would be the best place to kind of open the school and start this from the ground up? Is it Newark? Is it Paterson? Is it, let's say a school district that doesn't have a charter school what is the best place that I'm going to make the most impact and be proud of it as I'm growing and doing it. And so for me to come back home as someone who is not coming to work for someone, but actually building something that can work for a bunch of people is really what I wanted to do. I think it's like a childhood dream if you ever live in a certain part of a town, but you seek to live in the best part. Mm-hmm. And you may ride down that block off and say, wow, I would love to be someone who lived in that home. It's kind of how I view my career. Like, I would love to bring this back to my city. And leading up to it, I received like Education of the Year award from Paterson, even though I was working in Newark. Mm-hmm. I received some recognition from the mayor at Paterson. Some council people had acknowledged my work in Newark, and I was outside of the city, and said, it felt right. Everything fell into place in terms of getting approval for those people who supported me once I actually received approval. And it was a good foundational stepping stone. So probably in years to come, whether that be 2 or 4 or 6, I can't predict it right now. But I'm sure that I'll be doing something in Newark school related to begin to grow what I'm currently building.
And that's something that I often grapple with myself, being that I'm from Orange, New Jersey, but was able to, I was provided an opportunity that took me out of Orange into a different school system. I sometimes wonder, in what ways can I give back? 'Cause I definitely feel like I had friends who were as equally smart as me, right? As equally able, but given their environment and given the structure in which they went to school, their opportunities, we had different paths, right? And not because we all started the same place, but just because of the environment we're in, we had different paths. Yep. Do you think people who are thinking about this, people who are whatever they're building, right? Whether they want to be entrepreneurs, whether they want to be musicians, why do you think thinking about your community and where you're from and how you can give back to that community is so important?
Are you familiar with, you don't have to be familiar with it. I'll just say it. Mm-hmm. So Carter G. Woodson, he wrote a book, in 1931, I believe, or 32. I may have my years mixed up because I'm thinking of a whole nother study, but The Miseducation of a Negro. And so when he wrote that book, is one of my favorite books. And what he speaks about is there's a type of person who becomes educated. Not a person, he's specifically saying Black people, because it's miseducation of a Negro. But in the book, he talks about, some people elevating and then looking down on the people in which they were once among. And sometimes it stagnates the growth of those people because, you're functioning as if you are better than them, right? And also trying to appease maybe a certain crowd that hasn't fully accepted you. And so for me, it's extremely important for me to remain humble and to also be able to pull people up as often as I can and connect them to greater opportunities that they may just not have seen possible. Mm-hmm. Love to see a young person who is really pursuing their passions, and I can connect the dot for them, even if it's a 16-year-old, a 22-year-old, and sometimes it's 40-year-old men and women who have what it takes, but haven't realized how to navigate their current environment to get them to a place where they can flourish and really begin to see their dreams come to fruition. And and I like to be in between that. I like to have a conversation with billionaires, where I can sit down and learn a bunch of stuff that I don't know. When I get to pick the brain of a Jim Parsons or Frank McCourt, these are all very wealthy men in the country, and they care about, our democracy. And so talking to them and being able to bring that back to friends I grew up with who may have been in prison or may just be working 9 to 5s, trying to figure that out and build something, but they don't know how to start an LLC. I want to help you with that. Mm-hmm. Or they don't know how to apply for a grant. I want to help you with that. Matter of fact, I want to connect you with a grant writer who's interested in that as well. And let's get that going. So that's why I think it's important for me to not remove myself in such a way that I'm talking about, they should have made the decisions I made, or, it's not my fault. I want to be, again, a part of the motivation. I want to be a part of the thing that drive people to go after what they really want. And I'm fortunate enough to have had breakthroughs, right? Because I had breakthroughs that made me confident in me. As I shared earlier with the principalship and just saying, like, I'm selling myself short. I can do much bigger things. And I said, at the height of my career, when everybody was like, you about to be a superintendent, like, what are you doing? You leaving? What? I was like, yeah, because I think I could do bigger than superintendent. I think I could start my own school district.
Thinking about the role of teachers, right, and having these big dreams and that seed, because I think about, like, growing up, there's certain teachers you'll never forget, right? There's certain people in your life that you'll never forget, those seeds that were planted in you. And I think it's so important for us to all have those people in our lives. Who's somebody, and thinking about along your own journey, who's somebody who planted a seed in you that you will always forever be grateful for?
I always tell a story about this teacher, so I'm not going to use her. Like, if you ever
another one, then something that or another one.
All right. So I have a coach. I had a coach. His name is Shelton Prescott. Maybe he's listening, maybe not. And I've shared this story with him before too. But he was someone who came to the school. He graduated from Syracuse University. He kind of looked like me, but a lot taller. And people would call me like his son at the school. And as a youth, as a high school student, I really listened to everything he had to say because I related to him. And he just was relatable. Like, we listened to the similar music, and he had made it past a lot of some of the adversity that other people didn't. And we had a really close relationship. Even when I was in college, he gave me an opportunity to teach summer school and things like that. Long story short, when I graduated college, I started hanging with my neighborhood friends, as I always would, but not realizing that, people were putting me in the box, that because I spent a lot of time with my friends from the neighborhood, whatever they were doing, I must be doing it too. And I never forget him coming to me and saying, you are different now, right? You've reached a certain level and you have to do things differently. And I didn't understand what he was saying. So I actually said to him, so, if your mother was doing something inappropriate and would you not talk to her anymore? And he said, yes. Like, if my mother was doing something illegal, she couldn't come to my house anymore. And for about 2 years, I wouldn't speak to him.
Wow.
I wouldn't say anything to him. And it's because I didn't understand what he was trying to say. And probably after that duration, I called him and I was like, I get it. And I apologize. And you were really helping me see something that I can see now. And what he was essentially saying, whenever you get an opportunity to make people better, do it. Don't allow them to exist in negativity around you. And if they can't change it, then that's when you need to separate. And that's what he was trying to get me to understand. It took some years for me to get it, but it's been the reason why I've been able to sustain this amount of success. Sustain this amount of success because, as I said to you, it gets harder. People want more from you. People expect you to just do stuff because you grew up with them. And if they continue on that road, you got to be willing to say, listen, this is how it's going to go, or we're going to have to separate. And that's not the easiest thing to do.
What do you think is the biggest challenge you're facing now with growing your current projects and just life in general?
The biggest challenge is sustainability, right? Mm-hmm. The reality of the situation is the only way for this to keep growing, as well as the project that I'm working on, is continued success. Can I work with different groups of children of different nationalities and different upbringings, and get them to achieve at the same rate as I did at Shabazz High School, right? Or how do I democratize my process so that whether I'm present or not, there's something for principals across the country to follow to reach their children the same way, whether they look like me or not, whether those children look like me or not. And so I think that's the thing that I grapple with every day. And it can be stressful because sometimes you think it's a process, and other times you have breakthroughs where you say, oh, I could have skipped 7 steps. So I feel like I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I think the data says I know what I'm doing, but the key is, can you keep doing it? Is it real? Is this something that can be done if you weren't alive?
Do you have a daily ritual that you do? I know that you hold convocation. When you were at Shabazz, you held that morning convocation with your students. But for you, what's that morning thing that you do to keep yourself going?
Oh, that's a good question. So every day I wake up at 3:30 in the morning. 3:30? Yeah, my alarm goes off every day at 3:30 in the morning. I get up, and you can ask anybody in my family; they'll verify it. So I wake up at 3:30 in the morning, and I go into the bathroom. And I turn on motivational music, or actually, I like this app. It's called Pep, and it pulls all of the motivational speakers from T.D. Jakes to Eric Thomas to just random people that you don't know, or to like some vulgar motivation, which is good sometimes, from Tyrese. And in that hour where you kind of like drowsy but waking up, that half hour. It's really good to let that hit your brain. Let that be the first thing you're hearing. And because they're only talking about dreams and drive and what it takes. And, when it's raining, are you going to go run that 2 miles? And like everything you need to hear to just get your day going as to why you keep getting up. And then after that, I say a prayer. I say the same prayer every morning. It's an abundance prayer before I head to the gym. And I'm in the gym by 5:30, maybe 5. So it depends, but usually 5:30. And I stay in the gym till about 6:45 before I shower and get started with my day. If
you had to tell that young Black man who is struggling, trying to find himself, and just doesn't know what to do, right? Who knows he has this dream within, what would you tell him? And I'm specifically talking to the young Black man.
Okay. I would say nothing is going to work if you don't have hope. And so you need to develop a mindset that is solution oriented. Though the circumstances may seem like nothing can become of your life, or that thing that you really wanted to do is impossible, if you were telling yourself that, then it's going to be true. I remember watching an interview with Will Smith, and he quotes Confucius, and he says, like, those that say they can't and those that say they can are both usually right. And that's true. If you continue to tell yourself that it is impossible, it will be impossible. But if you can continue to tell yourself that it is possible, you'll start to see things shape up because you believe it. You'll begin to notice small wins, like you got that call back from the bank, even though they may have said no, they wouldn't respond before. You drafted that email that needed to go out, and you sent it to 100 people, and 2 of them responded. That's the start of the snowball that's going to ultimately turn into the manifestation of your dream. And so you have to keep believing. That's why a lot of people love Fetty Wap, who's a hometown guy from Paterson, is that no matter how he did it, he never stopped believing in himself until this day. He hasn't stopped believing. You take, Kenyatta Stewart. He is the corporate counsel right now for Newark. That's the highest authority within that city in terms of the law. And he was in Paterson as well. Like, hoping to get a job at one point. He just never stopped believing. So to anyone who's listening, who's young, who's entrepreneurial, who is interested in being successful, I would say that your mindset is going to be to your demise or to your success. And once you get that together and start plugging away and failing and winning, you're going to figure out like the context in which you thrive the most. You know, because some people, including me, I swore up and down that, you know, it was going to be real estate and it was going to be party promotion. And I realized rather quickly, like, this isn't where I thrive. Like,
were you into those stuff? Did you try it at some point?
Oh yeah, okay. I thought I was going to be the next whoever the big party promoter is. I thought that was going to be me. Me and Jay Morrison, you know, we've worked on a few projects together.
Okay,
you know, so you just believe, and I think I was being driven by the financial gain. And that's another thing, if I could say that to anybody who's listening. This is not about finance. This is about your passion. And when your passion becomes a success, you will turn down money because you can't accept it all. And you can ask anyone who's realized their passion how happy they are because the money just comes. Who would have thought this kid from the projects would being called to go around the country and speak, right? And people will be willing to pay for me to spend 30 minutes talking or 10 minutes talking. That wasn't my plan. I just wanted to educate students. That's it. And once I figured out that I could do it well, I just kept going. And lo and behold, now I'm building my own school district. You know, no one could have never predicted that. And it had nothing to do with financial gain. And initially, that's what it was all about. And once I realized that that was of the least importance, I just started having a ton of breakthroughs. God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. But it was like, oh, okay, this is what I should have been doing.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Gemar. So we're going to go into our quick lightning round. I am going to give you a prompt and I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind. And this is going to be sticking with our whole dream driving metaphor. Okay. So think of that when you hear these words. You'll probably know what the words are. You probably know where I'm going once you hear the first word. Okay. Okay. The first word is park.
Yeah. So as an educator, park for me, it means, the standardized tests that all students have to pass in order to graduate high school. So that's what that means for me. Reverse, it means, going backwards. Like you functioning in the deficit, like you're undoing a ton of stuff that you've already done. And now you have to backtrack just to go forward again.
Neutral,
to me means like I have no stance on it. It's okay either way, but you're stuck in the middle. So you being neutral often leaves you stagnant because you aren't taking a stance on anything. And therefore you're not growing your dreams. Chances are you are growing somebody else's dreams.
And last but not least, drive.
For me, that means something that you can't buy at Walmart, right? You can't just go get it somewhere. You can't, you got to have it. Drive is within you. It's the thing that makes me get up at 3:30 in the morning. It's what makes me keep going, till 12 o'clock at night just to do it again. It's the thing that essentially leads to the lifestyle that you always wanted.
And if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success. So tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road.
Every dream driver needs a growth mindset. They need vision. Mm-hmm. And they need to identify a team of people that are just as excited about this vision as they are, because you cannot do this alone. I know that it's me talking, but there's a ton of people that I can name, both personal and professional, that have gotten me to this point and continue to help me grow and develop.
I agree with you too. I feel like those are all three things that we definitely need to take the time to invest in and make sure that we're nurturing that as well. Thank you so much, Gemar. This has been such a pleasure talking to you. Can you tell our dream drivers where they can find you online if they want to, learn more about what you're up to or connect?
Yeah. So, you can find me. All of my handles on social media is at Principal Mills. That's Principal with a P-A-L. The principal is your pal. Mills. Email address, you can reach out to either gemarmills@yahoo.com. That's like direct email, because I think the one on social media might be the booking email, which goes to somebody else. But gemarmills@yahoo.com, that's the place you can find me. And social media, I mean, I do have other people managing my accounts, but I'm near also. So I'm on there, so people DM me. Typically, I'll look at it to see what it's about to make sure that I'm not missing anything, because I really enjoy connecting and helping people kind of get to where they want to be.
All right. Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. And I really hope our dream drivers took away as much as I did from this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, so that was a wrap for episode 121 with Gemar Mills. I hope that you enjoyed hearing his dream driving story as well as his keys to success. Don't forget to check out our show notes at dreamsanddrive.com. And all you have to do is click on episode 121 to get our tweetables, to get the links to resources mentioned in the episode, and much, much more. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, we are doing a giveaway of the week. We're going to be giving away the book, Brand You Like a Boss. So if you're someone who's struggling with personal branding, you want to work on your mindset, but you also want to work on your brand, you should definitely read this book. It's by dream driver and personal branding strategist Natasha Weston, and she just shares the no fluff guide to how you can brand you like a boss. And I'm currently reading this book, and I just love how she infuses her personal story as well as practical tips that you can implement right now in your own brands and your own lives. If you want to enter, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/win, dreamsanddrive.com/win. Thank you to everybody who's following us on social. We're Dreams and Drive across the board. Make sure to use the hashtag Dreams and Drive as well. If you want to comment about this episode, if you want to tag us in something, it's a great way to see what other people are talking about the show, and also just a great way to engage with the community at large. I am so appreciative of everyone also who's been leaving us reviews and who's been leaving us 5-star ratings on Apple Podcasts. If you want your review read on the next episode, just go on and leave one. I haven't had a new review since November 18th, 2017, so I definitely want to read yours on the next episode. So just go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating and give us a review. Lastly, please remember I am doing podcast strategy sessions, idea therapy, brainstorming sessions, and marketing consultations. So if you want to book a session with me, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/book. And for anyone who is thinking about starting their own podcast, I am a Libsyn affiliate, so you have the opportunity to get the rest of the month free and next month when you use the code DID to sign up for an account. So that's just on Libsyn.com, Libsyn. You can use the code DID when you sign up, and you'll get the rest of the month free and the following month when you use that code. And this is for podcast hosting. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. I really do appreciate it. I'm coming up on 2 years of podcasting, and just all the lessons, all the people I've been able to talk to, I have to continue to show gratitude because I truly am thankful. And I'm just so excited about where the future lies and what lies ahead in the future for me. As you guys can see, I'm now venturing into Facebook Lives. So if you are not part of our Dream Driver Facebook community, please just go to dreamsanddrive.com/Facebook or search Dream Driver Mastermind. Join the Facebook group, get notified when I'm going live, because I'm trying to do it at least once a week. I've been going live on Instagram as well. and just talking to people on different topics that I know you guys bring up and that you suggest I talk about. All right, so we'll chat again in episode 122, and our next guest will be the wonderful Kim Coles. Yes, you guys better listen to that one. That one is going to be great, and it was just such an honor to be able to interview and talk to someone who has just a legendary career and who so many of us love. And you guys probably know her as Sinclair from Living Single, but she's so much more now, and there's just so much that we talked about in that episode that I think will really hit your heart and inspire you. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 122. Bye, guys.